show.
Welcome to episode 157 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs are kind of cruising along right now. Second place in the Atlantic Division, sitting at 17-9-2 on the season, on pace for about 105 points. But are the Leafs actually frauds? Are they not as good as their record indicates right now? We are going to dig into that and much more in this episode, so I promise you want to stay tuned until the very end. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, Anthony Bruno. Had to race here. My kid's at a hockey game in the middle of fucking nowhere tonight. Man, sometimes you're participating in these kind of things and you just can't help but think about how crazy Canadian culture is for minor hockey. It's like, I'm driving this far for the kids to have a game. Unbelievable. And it's terrible weather out, which just made it even more Canadian. So yeah, but things are good. The Leafs goalie is the second coming of Patrick Waugh. So, I mean, I'm walking with a strut today, but I'm excited to get into it today, Bruno. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, let's dive right into it, man. Like, I just mentioned it right off the top of the show. Like, is this team for real? Because I get it. They're winning games. Anthony Stolarz has been incredible. Joseph Woll has been really good too. And you're allowed to have good goaltending. You're allowed for your goaltending to carry you and win you games. But when I look at all the underlying data, and call me a numbers nerd, you know, call me whatever the hell you want, tell me I'm stupid, there are a lot of concerning things that I'm seeing in the underlying numbers that indicate to me that this team is almost being completely carried by their goaltending right now, which is kind of scary. So I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts right now? Because yes, they're in second place in the Atlantic. You know, their record's good, on pace for their kind of their usual point total. But do you think this team is as good as their record indicates?
I think it's tough to say at this point, because this team has dealt with a lot since the start of the season, missing their best player for a lot of games, the injuries in the depth. We had the Marlies out for a few games, and those were games we were winning. So with that data, I think it's really tough to gauge, to say, okay, we look at this body of work and these are the numbers. The Leafs are getting this amount of chances. They are giving up these chances. Their goaltending is this. I mean, it's hard to do when you haven't had the full lineup in for very long. And I would like to see the numbers on when they are healthy. But even then, Matthews hasn't been himself since the beginning of the year. If someone would have told me right now that Matthews was going to start the season, he was obviously playing injured because of that trip to Germany, and then he was going to miss games, and we were going to have injuries to Domi, Bobby McMahon, like it went forever, right? Like we know the list. Pacioretty. And if you told me their record, like I'd be pretty happy with it, because there is something to be said, and we are big advanced stats guys on this show, but there is something to be said about simply and truly just finding a way to win. And they seem to be finding a way to win. And that's not me putting a crown on their heads. That's just me saying, okay, well, like you said, Bruno, they're on pace for 105 points. So based on the lack of depth they've had, based on missing their best player for much of the season, what more could we really ask for? Like if they were on pace for like 115 points, like, and to run away with the President's Trophy, it'd be like unbelievable. Like for them to pull that off with everything they've dealt with. As I always say, show me, and we're gonna find out who they are. I do recognize what you're saying. Because they don't seem to be creating the chances they normally do 5-on-5. And that's what's bitten us in the ass in the playoffs. The power play is hot and cold. We'd like to see more from there. I'm watching other teams, man. even teams that don't have the even close to the talent the Leafs have in their five guys in the on the power play, just there's a flow. Like even if they don't score, it just looks better. I don't know, man. I'd love to talk to a power play expert about, why this power play isn't where it should be.
Yeah, there's no excuse for this power play to rank 19th in the league right now. Like that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
With the talent they have on that unit, on that number one unit, to be 19th in the NHL.
It's like $60 million out there.
Is a joke. It's a joke, honestly. And listen, if you were to have told me before the season that Matthews would be dealing with this injury and, they'd have half of the Marlies playing, a chunk of the season through the first quarter of the season, I probably would have taken this record 10 times out of 10, 17, 9, and 2. I would have been like, sign me the hell up. But I'm just comparing the numbers this year to last year. Like, they are worse. Like, they're even worse. Like, even some of their defensive numbers. Like, everyone's talking about how good this team is defensively. I think it's really just a result of Stolarz, who actually right now has the best save percentage in the NHL. Number one in the NHL in save percentage.
Never thought I'd live to see the day where a Leafs goalie had the best save percentage in the National Hockey League.
Like, it's crazy. This is the best goaltending the Leafs have had since when? Like, I can't remember in my lifetime the Leafs having goaltending this good from two guys.
No, we're not
like they really like they haven't. And comment down below if you remember a tandem that has been this good statistically. I think I want to say I heard James Myrtle say that it's been since like 1994 with Potvin and whoever the backup was at that time. Like that was the last time the goaltending has been this good statistically. Anyway, I'd have to look that up myself. But even when I'm looking at like, for example, even like this is a very sort of basic stat, but even shots against per game. So last year, the Leafs were 17th in shots against per game. This year, 20th. Like we just saw them get absolutely caved in by the Devils, by a team that was visibly more skilled, way faster. Like that Devils team looked amazing.
Amazing
the other night.
Yeah.
So, and that's what concerns me. Like when you're getting into the playoffs and you're facing teams like that, and listen, not every team is as talented and as fast as the Devils, but holy shit, man, they look like they were in another league last night. I know the Leafs pulled it out of their ass. Stolarz was amazing and Matthews scored the OT winner, but it's games like that concern me. Even looking at some of these other numbers, Lepore, the Leafs right now rank 21st in expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5. Last year, they were 11th. They were 11th last year in expected goals for percentage. This year, 21st. Even if you look at 5-on-5 expected goals per 60, last year, the Leafs were 17th. So, we all view them last year as like not good defensively, carried by their offense. So 17th last year in 5-on-5 goals against per 60, expected goals against per 60. This year, 15th. And that's been carried by their save percentage right now. Second in the NHL in 5-on-5 save percentage, whereas last year in 5-on-5 save percentage, the Leafs were 24th. So if you look at expected goals against at 5-on-5, basically identical to last year in terms of where they rank among all 32 teams. So and again, I can point to other stats, but these are the things that I'm looking at. Even their goal differential, like right now, they're 11th in the league in goal differential. Like there's just some concerning things I'm seeing, and I don't know how long this goaltending can hold up like this. So that's what concerns me about this team.
What's strange is, and I haven't seen the numbers in a few weeks, is the expected goals against by defensive pairing. So there was at one point, the Tanev McCabe pairing was number one in the league, number one best in the league, and Riley Ekman-Larsson was like 10th. So again, maybe it's adjusted since the last time I've seen it, but you'd see that and you'd think, okay, well, that's the top four. They're not giving up a lot against. That's fueling the save percentage. But then other numbers say otherwise. It's kind of strange too, because even if you look at the D, right, go through the Leafs defensive core and look up all their plus minus. It's kind of strange. Like you think guys would be like heavy pluses based on their goal differential and the fact that they're winning games. It's very, very weird. Almost they're just, like I said, finding some way to win each and every game, and there's no consistency. So this is a confusing Leafs team. Like I think in previous seasons we knew exactly what the Leafs were. Last year was like an up and down year. Sometimes they look great, sometimes they look terrible. It was very, very strange team, and I didn't like it at all. This team, I do like this team, and I think there's a lot of potential there. I just think they need some runway together. We need to see more. For example, Bruno, I'm pretty sure expected goals for per 60 based on lines. The Matthews, Nyes, Marner line, if it's not number one, it's like in the top 5 in terms of like it's like something like 60 something percent or 60% of the share of chances. How many games has Matthews been healthy for? Nyes got injured. I forgot about him when I was listing them off before. So we haven't seen a lot of that line. And then Domi being out for so long, like that affects the depth because Domi moves around. He's center, he's wing. Pacioretty kind of being like that extra punch. He plays the bumper, almost like Tavares B. Willie and Tavares are just getting thrown around everywhere to make up for all this stuff, and they've done a great job. So I'm just going to be happy right now, Bruno. Like, again, if someone told me they'd be fighting for the division lead at this point, we'd be getting good goaltending. We've had a lot of inconsistencies as far as the lineup goes. I'd take it. Like, again, what more could we really ask for? Now, if this team over the next 20 to 30 games gets a heck of a lot healthier and we see the lineup that we should see, and these numbers still are where they are, yeah, I'll be pissed off.
It's time for a quick break for a word about Manscaped. For some, it's the most wonderful time of the year. And for others, it's just another round of dodging questions about your love life while trying not to look like you just crawled out of a cave. Enter the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra by Manscaped to save you this holiday season. Get your bushes under control with the Weed Whacker 2.0 and the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. So many amazing products from Manscaped. And remember that you can get 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Lepore, Manscaped just doesn't miss, man.
Man, it's the holiday season. You need to get someone a gift. Think of all the crappy things people have given you in the past and you've given others in the past. Don't do it again. Go to manscaped.com, type in the promo code GFP20 for free shipping and 20% off, and make the person that opens that present ecstatic.
Give that special man in your life exactly what they actually need to look and feel their best. So use our exclusive code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Head to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20.
But one thing I will say is clear is this team, and you're already starting to hear names bouncing around, this team needs to add forward depth. They need one more good player to the forward depth, I think, to get them to that next level. Because it does seem kind of stale, and there were numbers for a while where in their bottom 6 was terrible. There was a game where their bottom 6, I think, got one shot on goal. Like, that's unacceptable.
Their bottom 6 still is terrible.
Yeah,
you took the words out of my mouth. I was literally going to just say this next. Like, I think the glaring issue of this team right now is the bottom 6. Yeah. You know, you mentioned Domi, how he's been out of the lineup, but Lepore, when he's been in the lineup, he's been terrible. Yeah. 0 goals in 20 games. He hasn't scored a fucking goal yet.
You know what's so bad about that? 0 goals
and 6 assists in 20 games for Max Domi.
Well, the worst thing about that is you telling me he's played 20 games. If someone asked me how many games has Max Domi played, I would have said less because of simply not noticing him, I guess.
It's embarrassing.
In a lot of those games.
And listen, I think he gets a little bit of a pass because he's Max Domi.
Yep.
Everybody loves him in this market. Like, just go down the street, ask 10 Leaf fans, 10 out of 10 fans will probably say they love Max Domi. But he has been awful this season. Awful. I'd have to look into a little bit more of his underlying data, but the production has been egregious. 20 games from a guy, what's he making? $3.5 million? $3.5 million? Something like that. I gotta go check the cap sheet again. But to have 0 goals and 6 assists in 20 games from a guy who's expected to be one of the top offensive contributors outside of the big four, that's a joke. And that's a problem right now because if the core four are not scoring, and if Matthew Knies is not scoring, nobody else is doing anything. Like I went earlier today before the show, I went to go look at Winnipeg's depth and the Florida Panthers. You go down the list, both of those teams have like 9 to 10 forwards who have double-digit points. And then when you look at the totality of even like the D-men, just the team in total, both teams have like at least 10 players on the team with double-digit points. The Leafs just do not have that same depth. So when some of these, secondary scoring options are out of the lineup, or God forbid Matthews is out of the lineup, or one of the core four guys is out of the lineup, they're kind of fucked. That's the problem with this team. They are getting nothing from the depth forward. So I think that should be like their main priority heading into the deadline. I know Treliving has made an effort to, he said he wants to build from the net out with his D and his goaltenders. And it makes sense. Okay, that's his philosophy. And he's actually done a good job. I mean, no one can fault him for what he's done. Anthony Stolarz has arguably been the signing of the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
He completely revamped the decor. It's one of the best decors we've seen in the Matthews and Marner era, probably the best decor. But now this team can't score. Like even when you look at the underlying data, right now, I believe they're 21st or 22nd in the league in 5-on-5 expected goals for per 60. Like it's not good at the power play, as we said, 19th in the league. That is just not good enough, man. So I'm sure everyone's happy. Stolarz has been great. They're winning games. Not a ton to complain about when you're winning. And like I said, you're allowed to win games because of your goaltending. The fucking Montreal Canadiens made the Stanley Cup final because of Carey Price. Like I don't want to say it was the same thing the Leafs are doing now, but it kind of was during that cup run. They were getting outplayed every night. Carey Price was standing on his head and they were winning games. So you are allowed to win like that. I repeat, that is allowed to happen in the NHL. But I'm a process guy over results, and results are obviously important. I don't want to just say results don't matter. But man, there's some things I'm looking at where I'm like, this team might be a complete fraud. I know it's strong to say, but they might be complete frauds.
Can you say that like a complete fraud again, based on what we've seen, what we saw they pulled off with all those guys out, and the talent, the talent up front? We know about the big four, the additions on D. They have goalies. Like I'll put it this way, like frauds. I guess. Well, it depends on where exactly we are putting them. Because Bruno, in the preseason, you made the take. You're like, this team. Your bet was this team was going to win the division, which means at that point, on paper, you thought they were capable of that. So then it's based on names and talent. So I'll ask you, what are the big things we're not getting that you thought we would get?
The number one thing is better offensive play. Like it just.
But from who? From who? Like who are the guys?
I don't know. You know what? It's a good question because, okay, first of all, I didn't expect Domi to have 0 goals in his first 20 games. And I know he was dog shit through his first like 40 to 50 games last season. And it was the same thing with Bertuzzi. I just thought this team would be a little bit further ahead, even bringing in, like, for example, like Ekman Larson on the point. I think he's been good.
Yeah,
but they're still not getting enough offense even from their back end. And I'm not really saying they don't necessarily have the personnel, but that's also been an issue with this team over the last number of years, where if it isn't Morgan Riley, there is 0 offense coming from the back end. Ekman Larson has helped it to a certain degree, but I'm just going down the list here. Like Nick Robertson, man, that guy stands out to me big time. 2 goals, 0 assists in 23 games.
Unbelievable. Hard to do.
And again, I'm not expecting Robertson. Like I wasn't expecting him to come in and score like, 12 goals in the first 25 games, but 2 fucking points in the first 23 games.
Yeah.
Like those are the guys I'm disappointed in. Really, the only guy that I would say has like lived up to expectations. Maybe there's 2 guys. Matthew Knies for sure. And then Bobby McMahon when he's been in the lineup.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's been a complete disappointment across the board.
How many games has each player missed of those two?
So McMahon, by my count, has missed 7 games.
Okay.
Um, Let me go down the list. Okay, Pacioretty, we know he was out. He's missed 13 games. And listen, I think Pacioretty, like, when
He is
he
what he
looked pretty
is.
good before the
Yeah.
injury. Like, I know it's probably going to take him a little bit of time. He's older. He's coming off some major injuries. He actually looked pretty good. If he can kind of find something offensively, I think he can make a difference. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Domi has missed 8 games. Um, who else here? I mean, David Camp, he's a zero offensively, but he's missed 10 games. I'm just going down the list here, looking at everyone on the roster. Those are pretty much the main guys.
Yeah, man. We haven't seen who they are. And that's not me saying they're good. That's me saying I don't think we really know. And maybe we won't. Maybe these injuries will continue to haunt us throughout the season and into the playoffs. But like all the guys you just listed, like they've all individually missed like a third of the season. That's a few goals here and there, and all these numbers look different, and their record's even better, right? And like a game like last night when you're playing New Jersey, and fuck, man, Bruno, you're right. I was watching New Jersey, and I love Jesper Bratt, I love Nico Hischier, I love Jack Hughes. So I make a point to watch New Jersey. I think when Jersey is at their best, they're the best team in the league, or at least the best to watch, because how they just come firing at you at waves. It feels like they have 3 first lines all the time.
They're
Like
just flying the whole
there's
night.
so much speed and pressure. They made that if there is something that I got from last night that scared the shit out of me, they made the Leafs look slow. Slow.
Yeah, man, that's a huge concern. It's a huge concern. The Leafs are not a fast team.
They haven't
And
been
again,
for a
not
while.
everyone's as quick as New Jersey. Not everyone's as skilled as them. But I mean, there's some teams in the West that are pretty close. Even Florida. Like, I mean, Florida, I wouldn't call them necessarily a fast team, but I think they're a faster team than the Leafs. Like, I don't know, man. It's a recipe that I don't think is totally sustainable. It's like rely on the big four to just go nuts offensively and for your goaltending to stand on its head. And if they don't, then you could see games like last night where they just get completely outshot at 5-on-5 and need miracles to win.
You still think they're going to win the division?
I've been flip-flopping. I've been guilty of flip-flopping over our last few podcasts. Since we last recorded, the Florida Panthers have taken the division lead back from the Leafs.
Yeah.
Listen, based on the data that I'm seeing, based on what I'm watching on a nightly basis, I think I'm going to flip-flop again, because when we were on last time, I said the Leafs are going to win the division. I'm going back to the Panthers. Back to my Florida Panthers. And I call them my Florida Panthers because if you pay attention to this show, you know that I picked them to win the Stanley Cup last season, or at least get to the Stanley Cup in like February. So I'm still proud of that take. Where I actually predicted the exact Stanley Cup final in February.
Just thought you'd throw that in. Just thought you'd throw that in there.
So I'm going to just keep pumping my tires.
Well, if you go to our last show or 2 shows ago, I had that galaxy brain moment, as I called it, with the Bruins saying they're going to fire their coach and then go on a tear. And I think Sacco won like 6 of his first 8. So I felt pretty good. And then they got fucking bitch slapped last night by the Winnipeg Jets. I enjoyed every minute of that, though. I turned that game on after. I was like, this is amazing. Just watch the Bruins getting humiliated. And I'm happy to be wrong about my take if it means the Bruins get humiliated, especially by a Canadian team.
That team is in trouble, man. That Bruins team.
Yeah, I don't know what Boston is.
I don't know, man. A lot of it comes down to goaltending. Like, Swayman's been garbage. The Leafs goaltending has been awesome. And before we end the show, I even want to sneak in a little Senators conversation, because I know you have some things to get off your chest with the Senators. But before we get into that, like, one thing I'll mention with Ottawa, like when you look at Ottawa's underlying numbers, like they're good.
They're good.
They're way better than the Leafs. But Ottawa's still in the same old spot, sitting at 500, can barely get in. It looks like they're going to be fighting to get into the playoffs again. But when you look at their goaltending, it's been shit. A lot of it really does come down to goaltending. How good are your goalies? Are they going to outperform expectations? Are they going to underperform? Are they going to be league average? Honestly, it really, every single season, a lot of it really does come down to that, as simple as it
So
sounds.
it's funny, and I've been trying to wrap my head around the Leafs because, as you just mentioned, Ottawa being superior in a lot of these advanced metrics, and I've seen that too. And of course, I get told that a lot because I'm a Leafs fan living in Ottawa. But what Money Puck does, on Money Puck, you can go on there and you can see like all the advanced stats, like and list them and put them in the order you want, top to bottom. But then they have like an overall advanced stat power ranking. So however they calculate that, I don't know if certain things are worth more than others, but they rank the teams top to bottom. If you had to guess where the Leafs are in their power in the Money Puck power ranking of advanced stat metrics, where would you guess they are?
18th?
Eighth.
Come on, that
They're,
high?
as of last night, they were eighth. Ottawa was 13th.
Okay. That's surprising to
But
me, because
exactly,
Ottawa has
but
better
somebody
underlying
explain
stats.
somebody explain to me how, like, what am I missing?
It
And I
has
don't
to
know
be
if
the goaltending, because when you look at goals saved above expected, Stolarz has been awesome. Wall has been awesome. That has to be skewing it. That's the first thing that comes to mind, because everything else, the Senators have better underlying numbers across the board.
yeah, I don't know. You know, one thing the Leafs are doing, they're not getting enough credit for. They seem to be blocking a lot of shots.
That's true. That is true.
Like that.
Like
That's
something
something.
has to be said, Lepore, for like they aren't letting teams get to the middle of the ice maybe as easy as they have in the past. And
Safer.
I probably have to look at some data to back that up, but that's what it seems like just watching them on a night to night basis. So there's that. I think that's been a factor.
I'm still going to hold true, and I'm not taking away from Stolarz and Wall. I still save percentage is a team stat. I don't think it's a coincidence. I'm giving credit to them; they're obviously part of it, but I don't think it's a coincidence that on paper this is the best D we've had in a very long time, maybe in our lifetime, as far as the top four is concerned. And they're doing the goalies have these numbers. Like, I think the credit has to be given to the defensive play. And even we have to look at the math of how the forwards are doing as well. But really quickly on the topic of Swayman, how things have gone, and I totally understand. As everyone knows, the Four Nations teams got announced. Okay. That was some fun stuff, debate, whatever, who should be on the team, people getting their panties in a twist because their favorite player on their favorite team didn't make it, whatever. I always find that hilarious. Right now, okay, and I know that history has to come into play and resume has to come into play. How can you pick Swayman over Stolarz?
You're picking him based off the last 3 seasons, basically, and what he's done with Boston. Because this season, it's
Not
a
even
slam dunk
close.
that Stolarz should be on Team USA. Like, it's not even
Yeah.
close.
I'm not saying, like, I couldn't care less if Stolarz plays for the American team. I'm just saying that's purely based on the past, because from the start of the season this year, Stolarz has been good. He has been good. And maybe it's a thing, like maybe like with the US goaltending, you got Hellebuck and Ottinger. Maybe Swayman's the third string. So it's like we'd rather have the vet, the guy who's played a lot of games. People know him. Like, if he does go in, whatever, maybe it's that take. Like, who knows? I'm just saying. I mean, of course, it's not a hot take. The guy's got the best save percentage in the league. You could argue he should be the number one goalie for any team based on the way he's playing this season. But I wonder as time goes on, because we still have some time before that tournament. If some of these things keep going, it'll be, people will kind of look like they have eggs on their face for some of the guys they picked.
Yeah, I think some of these picks really could blow up in these teams' faces, like especially with the goaltending. Swayman for the US, Logan Thompson being left off the Canadian team with Canada's awful goaltending.
I was shocked. I've Washington, man, they've been great. Logan Thompson has been awesome. I was shocked he was left off. Like, I kind of thought like there was that hype early in the season with like Montembeault. And I kind of thought it had switched. I'm like, no. They're gonna take Logan Thompson. Man, that one really caught me by surprise.
We could do a whole podcast on how awful Canadian goaltending is right now. But before we wrap this up, I want you to set the scene for why you are so pissed off at the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, here we go. The feeling I got this week from the Ottawa Senators and their fan base, and I'll say it, love me, guys. Put your arms around me and give me a hug. The first thing was the Allmark comments in that media scrum. Okay. if I remember correctly, it was after a game he got a shutout. The journalist turned to him, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but the question was something along the lines of, how do you feel about your game right now? A totally basic post-game question that gets asked all the time. And he responded, totally agitated, oh, this question again, before he gave his answer. Okay. Then you move forward and you have the amazing story of Michael Andlauer's reaction to the rumors of Brady Tkachuk to the Rangers. And Bruno, did you listen to Spin Chicklets this week? Because they had Brooksy on.
No,
They
I
had
have not. I have not listened to that episode
it,
yet.
it was some good listening, and it was hilarious. So Brooksy was on, and he said I heard it from 3 different sources that the Rangers were kicking tires about Brady Tkachuk, and then they had
And this is Larry Brooks, longtime New York Rangers beat reporter.
Yes, the guy who was blamed for this thing by Ottawa media and all this stuff. He's just saying, guys, like I heard this from 3 different sources and I put it out there. Like I'm essentially just doing my job, right? And he said he thought it was a joke when he heard there was going to be some sort of investigation. But then they had a guest appearance by Sean Avery out of nowhere. And he starts going off about how amazing his relationship was with Brooksy while he was in New York. And he made the comment, he's like, man, he's the guy that puts pen to paper. And let me tell you, he's always right. So there ain't no tampering going on when Brooksy says something. And then the guys are laughing, freaking out, saying they're going to get in trouble. But I just found it, I'll say it, Allmark getting agitated at that. That's all it took. That's all it took. Imagine, I said to a friend of mine, I said, imagine the Montreal Canadiens made a big trade for a goalie, gave him $8 million a year, extended him for 4 years, and he had a rough start to the season. You think the hardest thing that guy would have to deal with would be, how do you think your game's at right now? There were stories around Carey Price that year. He had to tell the media to chill because it was the preseason. Everyone remember that. In Toronto, we chased out Hall of Famers. Someone asking you about your play and Lauer. And I have different theories on this because I'll start out by saying I like Michael Andlauer. He's a self-made guy. He's doing something really good for my city, and he is doing good things, and he's making the right moves. Him accusing, whether it was the Rangers specifically or whoever's connected to them, to soft tampering, there's trade rumors all the time. All the time. For 8 years, we had to listen to how Austin Matthews was going to end up in Arizona. Mitch Marner was traded to Vegas. Nylander was traded every week by Nick Kypreos. So like, I'm kind of confused by it. And this is the take I have on it, because I'm going to kind of defend Andlauer here. I think that was his reaction, and he's a smart guy. I think he wanted to put that out there to tell people that he was pissed off, because I think that call actually happened, and he's upset that it got out.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad theory.
Yeah.
I just think the Senators are an embarrassment in general, man. It's just the same shit with this team year after year. They're on pace for a 78-point season. And it's funny because as we're talking about this, Linus Ullmark is shutting out the Anaheim Ducks. They're almost through 2 periods. The Senators are up 4-0 at the time of recording this right now. It's the Ducks. They suck too. But would be maybe a nice shutout tonight for Ullmark. But this team is stuck in no man's land. Rumors about their captain getting traded. They can't, for the life of them, figure out how to make the playoffs. The Leafs hear the same garbage every year about how they can't get out of the first round. This team can't even make the playoffs. I am beating a dead horse because I make fun of this team every single year, and it's the same shit over and over. Now, Ullmark gets the bag. He's getting agitated by simple questions. The owners accusing teams of soft tampering. It's a shit show. It's a complete shit show. And man, if they end up trading Brady Tkachuk at some point, I mean, listen, I know they still have other great young players there, but what a mess in Ottawa, man. I'm sorry.
Well, Bruno, at the same time, you just finished saying their advanced numbers are really good. So do you expect them to turn?
Yeah, I do think they'll turn I think they are definitely better than their record indicates. But again, I know I just talked about how I'm a process over results guy, but results matter, and they're on pace for 78 points.
Yeah, they're like the
Figure it
opposite of
out.
they're like the opposite of the Leafs right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, is
Yeah.
there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap this thing up?
Ottawa's going to be fun to watch the rest of the season because, like you said, what are these numbers? Is that a mirage? Like, I'd like to talk to real geeks about that and be like, nah, no, this is why they're bad, right? So Ottawa's, it's going to be fun to see how Ottawa unfolds, how their season unfolds the rest of the way, because they're one of the few teams where nothing would really surprise me. Because again, like you said, like you mentioned the underlying numbers, they do look good. And a lot of nights they look really good. They embarrassed Toronto, the game they beat us. So if they went on a tear, I wouldn't be overly surprised. But maybe it's the confirmation bias. If they fall flat on their face, I won't be surprised either. Even if they are quote unquote playing well, right? So Ottawa will be fun to watch.
And I'll be watching the Leafs very closely over these next 3 games because they're playing three honestly pretty shitty teams in a row. They got the Ducks at home, and then the Red Wings on the road, and then the Sabres back at home.
Okay.
So if I don't see them controlling play at 5-on-5 and putting some pucks in the back of the net against these teams, then I'm going to continue ringing the alarm bell when it comes to this hockey team.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 157 of the Gluttons for Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Listen, I say this all the time. If you're a longtime listener or a new listener and you really enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you like today's show, go ahead and smash that like button. Literally just doing that does wonders for our channel and our content. If you want to get involved in the conversation, leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel, of course, and ring the notification bell if you want to know exactly when we are dropping some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. I hope the Leafs keep winning, but also kind of figure out who the hell they are and maybe make a trade. That would be nice as well. But until then,
Brady
enjoy.
Kachuk. Brady
What's
Kachuk.
Brady Kachuk. Yeah, shit. Maybe Brady Kachuk.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. The Brady Kachuk soft tampering on the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast.
Michael Andlauer is going to be sending us an email. Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, that's going to do it. Enjoy this next stretch of Leafs hockey, and we will chat very, very soon.
Thanks, everyone.